Red-Eye slammed his fist on the polished table of the Galactic Council chamber, causing the assembled representatives to flinch. His crimson-colored eyes, a mark of his species' ancient bloodline, blazed with frustration. "You fools! You cannot treat human ships like regular vessels." His voice echoed through the vast chamber. The council members exchanged annoyed glances, clearly tired of the old merchant's outburst. Head Counselor Blue Shell raised his hand for silence. "Captain Red-Eye, you've traveled the stars for over 200 cycles. We respect your experience, but humans are barely more than primitives. They achieved faster than light travel just 15 years ago." Red-Eye shook his head slowly. "Let me tell you what I saw 3 months ago. Maybe then you'll understand." He activated the holographic projector built into the table's surface. The chamber darkened as images flickered to life. A simple human cargo ship appeared, its hull bearing the marks of countless repairs. It looked ugly compared to the sleek vessels of the established spacefaring races. "This is the Earth merchant vessel Rocky, a simple cargo hauler carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies." Red-Eye's voice grew quiet. "We were in the same sector when the Gray Band pirates attacked." The hologram showed 5 pirate ships, their weapons already charging. The council members leaned forward, suddenly interested. The Gray Band pirates were infamous for their advanced technology and brutal tactics. The pirates demanded immediate surrender, standard procedure. They'd steal the cargo and leave the crew in escape pods. Red-Eye's hands trembled slightly. But the human captain, he just laughed. In the hologram, the pirate ships opened fire. Energy beams struck the human vessel, causing its shields to flare brilliantly. Where any normal ship would have been crippled, the Rocky kept moving. First volley hit them dead on. Should have cracked them open like a shell. But look, Red-Eye pointed at the image. The hull wasn't even scratched. The humans call it battleship-grade armor. Completely outdated by our standards. But somehow, it worked better than our best shield technology. The council watched as the Rocky turned to face its attackers. Its engines flared, and the bulky ship accelerated straight toward the pirate fleet. The humans have a term from their naval history, crossing the T. The Rocky's captain used his ship like a battering ram. No fancy maneuvers, no complex tactics, just straight-line aggression. The hologram showed the Rocky smashing through the pirate formation. Energy weapons splashed harmlessly off its hull. When a pirate ship failed to move quickly enough, the Rocky simply plowed through it, losing some outer plating but continuing without slowing. 3 pirate ships destroyed, 2 retreated. The Rocky lost some armor plates, had a few hull breaches, but completed its delivery run on schedule. Red-Eye shut off the hologram. The captain later told me they didn't even need to use their emergency repair systems. The chamber remained silent for several moments. Finally, Head Counselor Blue Shell spoke. "One lucky encounter doesn't prove anything. Our analysis shows human technology is far behind the galactic standard." Red-Eye gathered his things, his expression grim. "That's exactly what makes them dangerous. They don't build ships like we do. They don't think like we do. Their vessels are ugly, primitive, and practically indestructible." He walked toward the chamber's exit but stopped at the door. "If you're planning what I think you are, if you're going to try intimidating Earth into accepting council authority, remember this. In all my years of space travel, I've seen countless ships destroyed. But I've never seen a human ship go down without taking its attacker with it." The door closed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving the council members to their deliberations. None of them noticed the small smile on Red-Eye's face as he left. He had done his duty. He had warned them. Now, they would learn the hard way why human ships had earned their reputation. In the darkness of space, Earth's fleets waited, their battle-scarred hulls telling stories of victories that should have been impossible. The Council would soon discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or shields, but in their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Commander Stone watched the alien fleet appear at the edge of Earth's solar system. 30 ships, their hulls gleaming with polished perfection, emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They looked beautiful, dangerous, and completely foreign to human design philosophy. "They're here for a show of force," Stone muttered, standing on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Iron Will. His ship, like all human vessels, looked rough and patched together. Armor plates of different ages covered its hull, some shining new, others bearing the scars of past battles. The alien fleet's commander opened a communication channel. "This is High Captain Swiftwing of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to welcome humanity into the greater galactic community." Stone smiled grimly. 20 years in space had taught him to read between the lines. 30 warships for a peaceful mission. That's like bringing a gun to a handshake. He pressed the comm button. "This is Commander Stone. We appreciate your welcome, but our sensors detect your weapons are powered up." A moment of silence followed. Then Swiftwing's voice returned, less friendly. "A simple precaution. We request permission to approach Earth for diplomatic discussions." Stone looked at his tactical display. The alien ships had arranged themselves in an attack pattern disguised as a ceremonial formation. His own fleet consisted of just 10 ships, all of them looking like they'd barely survived their last fight. "Permission denied," Stone replied firmly. "We'll meet at the neutral location we suggested earlier, the orbit of Mars." The alien commander's voice turned cold. "The Galactic Council's authority is absolute in these matters. We will proceed to Earth. Any interference will be considered hostile action." Stone sighed. He'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, but he'd expected it. "All ships, defensive formation Delta. Remember your training. Let them hit first, hit back harder." The human ships moved slowly, their engines burning steady and strong. They formed a simple wall between Earth and the advancing alien fleet. No fancy maneuvers, no complex tactics. Just 10 sturdy ships ready to hold the line. Swiftwing's voice came again, now filled with warning. "This is your final chance. Move aside, or we will demonstrate the Council's power." "You know," Stone replied calmly, "someone once said that the most dangerous phrase in any language is 'we've always done it this way.' You're used to ships that break when you hit them hard enough. Our ships don't work like that." The alien fleet opened fire. Brilliant energy beams struck the human vessels, expecting to slice through their primitive armor. Instead, the beams scattered across layered defense systems that no advanced race would have thought to combine. "All ships, return fire," Stone ordered. "Show them why Red Eye warned them about us." The Iron Will's weapons might have looked outdated to the alien fleet, but they worked just fine. Simple kinetic rounds, mass drivers, and plasma torpedoes. Nothing fancy, just reliable weapons that kept working even when half the ship was falling apart. 3 alien ships fell in the first exchange, their perfect hulls shattered by the unexpected power of human weapons. 4 more broke formation when they realized their shots weren't having the desired effect. "How?" Swiftwing's voice cracked with disbelief. "Your ships are primitive. Your technology is inferior." Stone watched as another alien vessel tried to circle behind his fleet, only to meet a wall of defensive fire. Primitive doesn't mean weak. Inferior doesn't mean ineffective. We built our ships to last, not to look pretty. The battle lasted less than an hour. The alien fleet, for all its advanced technology, had never faced ships that got stronger as they were damaged. They had never fought vessels that redirected power through their broken parts, using destroyed sections as impromptu weapon platforms. When Swiftwing finally called for retreat, only 18 of his 30 ships could still make the jump to faster-than-light speed. The human fleet, though battered and scarred, remained in formation. All 10 ships damaged but functional. Stone opened a channel one last time. "Tell the Council this. Next time, send diplomats in 1 ship, not warriors in 30. We'll be happy to talk peace, but we'll always be ready for war." Behind him, Earth shone blue and peaceful, protected by ships that looked like they might fall apart at any moment, but never did. Dr. Adams stood in front of the massive viewing window, watching repair crews work on the Iron Will. 5 days had passed since the battle with the Council fleet, and Earth's defenders needed to be ready for what would come next. "They still don't understand what they're looking at," she said, pressing her hand against the cold glass. Behind her, the engineering lab was filled with holographic displays showing ship designs that would make any alien engineer laugh, until they saw them in action. The door slid open, and Commander Stone walked in. His uniform was wrinkled from too many hours on the bridge. "The Council's asking questions. They want to know how we survived their attack. More importantly, they want to know why their scans can't make sense of our ships." Adams smiled. "Let me show you something." She walked to a central table and activated a hologram showing layers of ship armor. 10 years ago, everyone said we were crazy. They said mixing old and new technology would never work. A hologram zoomed in, revealing what looked like a mess of different materials packed together. Traditional armor on the outside. Adams pointed to each layer, energy shields beneath that, then another layer of physical armor, then more shields. Like a cake, but each layer does something the aliens never thought of. "The outer layer takes the hit," Stone said, beginning to understand. "Exactly. But here's the clever part. When the outer armor gets damaged, it doesn't just fall away. The broken pieces become part of the defense system." Adams tapped a control, and a hologram showed a damaged section of hull. The shields hold the broken pieces in place, creating a scattered defense field that's actually stronger than the original armor. Stone watched as simulated weapon fire struck the damaged area. The energy dispersed across the broken armor pieces, weakening before it could reach the inner layers. "That's why our ships look so ugly," Adams continued. "Those patches and repairs aren't signs of weakness. They're making the ships stronger. Each battle adds another layer of protection. The aliens keep their ships pristine because damage weakens them. Our ships get tougher every time they're hit. But the power requirements must be enormous," Stone said. Adams nodded. "That's where the second secret comes in." She changed the display to show the ship's power system. "We don't use a single main reactor like they do. We have smaller powered units spread throughout the ship. When one section gets damaged, the others compensate. You'd have to destroy every single piece to stop one of our ships." The door opened again, and a young engineer rushed in. "Dr. Adams, the test results from the new shield modifications are ready." Adams's eyes lit up. "Watch this, Commander." She switched the hologram to a live feed from the testing chamber. A small section of hull floated in space, similar to what they used on Earth's ships. "Fire the test weapon," she ordered. A beam of energy struck the hull section. Instead of trying to block it, the layers of armor and shields seemed to absorb the hit. Then, surprisingly, the energy coursed through the damaged sections and shot back out in a scattered pattern. "We're not just absorbing their attacks anymore," Adams said proudly. "We're learning to redirect them. The more they damage our ships, the more weapons they give us to use against them." Stone stared at the display, finally understanding why the Council ships had been so confused during the battle. They're fighting by the old rules. Hit hard enough, and anything will break. But we're not playing that game. "No, we're not," Adams agreed. Humanity looked at space combat and asked a different question. Not how do we avoid damage, but how do we use damage to our advantage? She turned back to the window, watching the repair crews adding new armor plates to the iron will. Each plate was different, creating a patchwork pattern that would make any alien engineer cringe. But beneath that ugly exterior lay the future of space combat, ships that turned their scars into shields and their wounds into weapons. "The Council thinks they're looking at primitive technology," Adams said quietly. "They're actually seeing the next step in ship evolution. They just don't know it yet." The rings of Saturn sparkled like diamonds in the dim sunlight. Chunks of ice and rock drifted peacefully through space, perfect cover for the waiting human fleet. Commander Stone counted down the minutes on the Iron Will's bridge, watching his tactical display as hundreds of council ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They brought their entire third fleet, his tactical officer reported. 250 ships, all military grade. Stone nodded calmly. And we have 40 ships hiding in these rings. Sounds about right. He opened a channel to the fleet. Remember the plan. Let them come to us. The rings are our advantage. The council fleet approached in perfect formation, their sensors struggling to penetrate the natural interference from Saturn's rings. Their commander's voice boomed across all channels. This is High Admiral Quick Strike. Surrender now, and the council will show mercy. Stone didn't respond. Instead, he watched as the alien fleet drew closer to the rings, exactly as planned. All ships, he whispered into the comm, execute Operation Avalanche. Human ships burst from their hiding places within the rings, but not to attack. Instead, they fired special charges into the densest parts of the rings themselves. The explosions sent waves of ice and rock hurtling toward the council fleet. Pathetic. Quick Strike's voice came again. Space debris cannot harm our advanced shields. Stone smiled. The debris isn't meant to harm you. It's meant to blind you. As the chunks of ice and rock bounced off the council ship's shields, they created a cloud of fine particles. The aliens' sophisticated sensors, designed to detect energy signatures and shield frequencies, were overwhelmed by the countless small impacts. Now, Stone ordered, breakthrough formation. The 40 human ships charged forward, their ugly hulls barely visible through the debris cloud. They'd practiced this maneuver for months, using their ship's sturdy construction to plow straight through the rings themselves. The council fleet fired blindly into the cloud, their energy weapons dissipating against ice crystals or missing entirely. When they finally saw the human ships, it was too late to avoid the collision. Iron Will led the charge, smashing through 2 council ships that couldn't move fast enough. Its layered armor held together, actually growing stronger as it absorbed impact after impact. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet followed the path it carved through the enemy formation. Impossible. Quick Strike's voice cracked with disbelief. Your ships should have been torn apart. You still don't understand, Stone replied, watching as his fleet turned for another pass. Every bit of damage makes us stronger. Those ships you destroyed in our first battle. We studied how they broke. We learned. We adapted. The battle turned into chaos as human ships used the rings for cover, emerging to strike, and then vanishing again. The council fleet's formation broke apart as they tried to chase targets they couldn't properly track. Look at your sensors, Stone continued, his voice calm despite the destruction around him. Look at our ships. Every time you hit us, the broken pieces of our armor create new sensor shadows. Every time you damage us, we use that damage to hide better, to fight better. The council ships began to retreat, their perfect formation shattered. Of the 250 ships that arrived, only 180 remained. The human fleet had lost 5 ships, but their sacrifice had proved the new tactics worked. Take this message back to the council. Stone broadcast on all frequencies. We didn't build our ships to look pretty. We built them to survive. Every battle makes us stronger. Every defeat teaches us more. And we're very good students. As the council fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Stone looked at Saturn's rings, now full of debris from the battle. Where alien eyes saw chaos and destruction, he saw something else. Proof that humanity's approach to space combat worked. They'd turned nature itself into a weapon, just as they'd turned their ship's battle damage into an advantage. Send word to Earth, he ordered. Tell them Operation Avalanche was a success, and tell Dr. Adams her new armor designs worked perfectly. It's time to start building more ships. Admiral Miller stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, the Resilient. The ship's name was printed on its hull in 3 places, each in a different style, evidence of the times the letters had been repaired and replaced. Like all human ships, it looked like it had already survived several wars. "Fleet status report," he ordered, watching as 50 human ships formed up around the Resilient. Each one bore marks of previous battles, their hulls a patchwork of repairs and reinforcements. "All ships ready, Admiral," his second-in-command reported. "Though I doubt the Council will take us seriously when they see us coming. We look like a salvage fleet." Miller smiled. "That's exactly what we want them to think." He opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Admiral Miller. Today we take the fight to them. Today we show them why appearance isn't everything." The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for the Council's main trade route. Intelligence suggested they'd find a defensive fleet there, guarding their merchant ships against pirates. They found more than that. A Council battle group of 70 ships waited in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of a nearby star. "They were expecting us," Miller's tactical officer said. "Good." Miller straightened his uniform. "That means we get to teach them another lesson." The Council commander's transmission came immediately. "This is Guard Captain Swift Strike. Your ships appear damaged and unfit for combat. Return to your territory, and we will show mercy." Miller recognized the name. This was the son of Quick Strike, the admiral they defeated at Saturn. "This is Admiral Miller of the Earth Fleet. We're exactly as fit for combat as we need to be." He turned to his crew. "Execute Battle Plan Thunder." The human fleet split into 3 groups. From a distance, it looked chaotic, like damaged ships struggling to maintain formation. But there was purpose in their movement. The Council fleet opened fire, their energy weapons striking the apparently weakened human ships. Instead of trying to dodge, the human vessels took the hits directly. "Sir," Swift Strike's tactical officer shouted, "their ships, the damage isn't registering correctly. Our sensors can't get clear readings." Miller allowed himself a small grin. Dr. Adams' newest innovation was working perfectly. The layered armor didn't just absorb damage anymore. It created false sensor readings, making it impossible for the enemy to tell which hits were actually hurting the human ships. "All ships, return fire," Miller ordered. "Show them what battle-tested really means." The human fleet's weapons blazed to life. Kinetic rounds, plasma torpedoes, and repurposed energy from absorbed hits, all firing from ships that looked too damaged to fight. "Impossible." Swift Strike's voice cracked. "Your port side is completely exposed. Your engines are barely functioning." "Are they?" Miller asked calmly, as his fleet continued their advance. "Look closer. What you think is battle damage is actually armor. What you see as weakness is our strength." The Resilient took 3 direct hits to its starboard side. The impacts left huge scorch marks and torn metal, which the ship immediately incorporated into its defensive systems. The broken pieces, held in place by magnetic fields, created an even stronger barrier than before. 20 Council ships fell in the first exchange. Their perfect formations broke apart as they realized they couldn't trust their sensor readings. Every hit they landed on the human ships just made their targets harder to scan, harder to damage, harder to stop. "Last warning," Miller broadcast. "Withdraw your forces. We don't want to destroy your entire fleet." Swift Strike chose to retreat, but 30 of his ships wouldn't make the journey home. The human fleet had suffered damage, lots of it, but that only made them stronger. Miller watched the Council ships flee. "Send word to Earth. Phase 1 of the counterattack was successful. The Council finally understands. They can't beat us by destroying our ships. That just makes them more dangerous." He looked at his fleet, each ship bearing new scars from the battle. To human eyes, they were beautiful, proof that humanity's path to the stars wasn't about perfection, but about turning every setback into an advantage. "Set course for the next target," he ordered. "The Council needs to learn that starting this war was their biggest mistake, and every battle will make that lesson clearer." The Galactic Council's main chamber had never been so quiet. Dr. Adams stood before the assembled representatives, with recovered pieces of human ship armor floating in containment fields behind her. The Council had finally requested a peaceful meeting, after losing their 4th fleet in 2 months. "You want to know why you can't defeat our ships?" Adams began, her voice calm but confident. "The answer is simple. You've been thinking about space combat all wrong." Head Counselor Blue Shell leaned forward. "Explain." Adams pointed to the largest piece of armor, its surface covered in battle scars. "You build ships to avoid damage. We build ships to use damage. Every hit they take makes them stronger." She activated a holographic display showing the layers of a human ship's hull. "Look at the outer layer. Simple metal armor, nothing special. But under that," the display zoomed in, revealing complex patterns of energy fields and materials. "When your weapons hit our ships, they don't just damage the armor. They change it. The heat reshapes the metal. The energy gets absorbed. The broken pieces create new patterns that our shield systems adapt to." Quick Strike, now promoted to Council Military Advisor, stood up. "That's impossible. Damage weakens ships. That's a universal constant." Adams smiled. "Nothing in space is constant, Admiral. We learned that the hard way." She touched a control, and the hologram showed a ship being hit by energy weapons. "Watch what happens to the debris." The Council members watched as broken pieces of armor stayed in place, held by magnetic fields and energy shields. Each new hit caused the fragments to shift and move, creating an ever-changing barrier. "We call it tactical destruction," Adams explained. "Every piece of debris becomes part of our defense. Every scar becomes a shield. Every blast mark changes how our armor reflects enemy fire." She walked to another piece of recovered hull. "This section survived 12 direct hits from your most powerful weapons, not because it's especially strong, but because each hit made it harder to damage in the same way again." "But the power requirements," Blue Shell started, "are handled by distributed systems," Adams finished. "No central reactor to target. No single point of failure. Power flows through the damage, using broken circuits to create new pathways. The more you destroy, the more paths we have to work with." The chamber erupted in murmurs as the Council members finally began to understand. Their perfect ships, designed to stay pristine and undamaged, had been fighting against vessels that turned destruction into strength. "Here's what you need to understand," Adams continued. "Humanity didn't become strong in space because we had better technology. We became strong because we think differently. We don't see battle damage as failure. We see it as evolution." She brought up images of human ships after various battles. To the Council members, they looked like wrecks barely holding together. But now they could see what they'd missed before: the patterns in the damage, the purpose in the chaos. "Every ship in our fleet is unique," Adams said. "Each one shaped by the battles it survived. You can't predict how they'll react to damage, because no two ships are damaged the same way. That's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength." Quick Strike stood again, but this time his voice held respect instead of challenge. "You've turned war itself into a weapon. Each battle makes your ships stronger, while our perfect vessels remain unchanging." "Exactly." Adams shut down the holographic display. "That's why we're here offering peace. Not because we're afraid of losing, but because we don't want to win that way. Every battle makes our ships harder to stop. If this war continues, eventually our fleet will be truly unstoppable." The Council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Blue Shell spoke. "The old merchant, Red Eye, he tried to warn us. He said human ships couldn't be fought like regular vessels. Now we understand why." Adams nodded. "It's not about having the strongest ship at the start of a battle. It's about having the strongest ship at the end. And that's something humanity learned a very long time ago." Red Eye stood at the observation deck of Unity Station, the newly built space station where humans and Council species now work together. Below him, ships from across the galaxy docked and departed, sleek Council vessels alongside battle-scarred human ships. A group of young merchant captains gathered around him, as they often did these days. They all wanted to hear from the one who had first warned the council about human ships. "Tell us again," one of them asked, "about the first time you saw a human ship in battle." Red-Eye smiled, remembering that day. It was the cargo ship Rocky. Everyone thought it was just another primitive vessel, ugly and patched up. Nobody understood that every patch, every repair, was actually making it stronger. He pointed to a human ship currently docking at the station. Its hull showed signs of at least 3 major battles, but it moved with perfect precision. "See that ship? Most crews would be ashamed to fly something looking so damaged. But humans, they're proud of those scars. Each one tells a story. Each one makes the ship better." The station's massive windows suddenly darkened as a shadow fell over them. The observers gasped as the Resilient, humanity's legendary flagship, passed by. Its huge hull bore the marks of countless battles, yet it moved with grace that even the newest council ships couldn't match. "Admiral Miller still commands her," Red-Eye said. "That ship has survived more battles than any other vessel in known space, and each time it came back stronger." One of the young captains shook his head. "But I don't understand. The humans share their armor technology with us. Why don't our ships look like theirs?" "Because it's not just about the technology," came a voice from behind them. Dr. Adams walked onto the observation deck, her engineer's uniform now bearing the mixed insignia of Earth and the Council. "The armor, the shields, the power systems, those can be copied," she continued. "But the human approach to space, that's harder to learn." Red-Eye nodded in agreement. "The Council builds ships to be perfect. Humans build ships to be resilient. Both approaches have their place." They watched as a new type of ship departed the station, a council vessel with patches of human-style armor covering its most vital areas. The first of many hybrid designs. "The peace treaty changed everything," Adams said. "Not because it ended the war, but because it helped both sides understand each other. The Council learned that perfection isn't always the answer. We learned that some of their technology could make our ships even better. And now we have this." Red-Eye gestured to the station around them. "Unity Station, built with Council precision and human durability. Beautiful and tough." A flash of light caught their attention as a ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. It was the Rocky, the same cargo ship Red-Eye had seen fight the pirates so long ago. Now it served as a training vessel, teaching new crews about the principles that had made human ships legendary. "That's why I gather young captains here," Red-Eye told Adams. "To teach them what I learned the hard way. Never judge a ship by its scars. Never assume damage means weakness. And never, ever underestimate a vessel that looks like it's been through hell." Adams smiled. "Because it probably has been through hell and came back stronger." The young captains watched in silence as more ships moved past the station's windows. Council ships with their perfect hulls, human ships with their battle scars, and new hybrid vessels combining both philosophies. Each one represented a lesson learned, a story told, a step toward a better future. "Remember this," Red-Eye said to his audience. "The humans weren't warned about. They were the warning. A warning that the old ways of thinking about space combat weren't the only ways. That sometimes the strongest ships aren't the ones that avoid damage, but the ones that learn from it." As if to emphasize his point, the Resilient's engines flared to life, its scared hull gleaming in the starlight as it prepared for another journey. Not as a weapon of war anymore, but as a symbol of a new age. One where humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their technology, but their perspective. The stars seemed a little brighter that day, shining down on ships that carried the lessons of the past into the promise of the future.